I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
being led not by myself, by Minister Sachs. I'm not going to disclose cabinet conversations, for obvious reasons.
Minister, you're the Minister for Children. You're the Minister for Children. So do you agree that open drug use in public spaces is dangerous for families and children, and that your government should never have allowed it? And will you commit today to never allow it again in another province or area?
Thank you very much. Through the chair again, I appreciate the advocacy of my colleague here. I am here to speak about my file, about mains and estimates. Minister Sachs continues to lead when it comes to this issue.
Minister, you are the Minister for Families and Children, so are you saying that you do not speak up for families and children within your caucus, within your cabinet? I'll give you an example here. The RCMP in Campbell River, BC, and in Prince George, BC, seized thousands of prescription drug pills, many of which were diverted from BC government's Safe Supply program. Global News did an investigation where within half an hour in Vancouver, the journalist had acquired nearly 20 tablets of hydromorphone. The Vancouver Police Deputy Chief told Parliament last month that your government's funded hard drugs are ending up on the black market. Now, as the Minister for Children, have you taken any action on this government-supplied illicit drug diversion to protect children?
I would caution members to Standing Order 112 on relevancy to the matter before the committee. The committee is studying the supplementary estimates. Madam Minister, it's your discretion.
I feel I've already answered this question, Chair. Thank you.
Well, Minister, you are the Minister for Families and Children, and to be pushing this off is really unfortunate. You are the Minister for Families and Children.
We have point of your order.
Point of order, Chair. You just referenced a standing order. These matters can be raised at committee, but it has to be the relevant committee.
Thank you, Mr. Fragus. Ms. Gray, I will again remind you of Standing Order 11.2 and the relevancy of the subject matter before the committee. Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll let the minister know. I'm almost out of time here. That I speak to schools in my community quite often with students, and in fact, I've spoken to 6 classes in the last 6 months. And one class project that occurred where the teacher had students write questions about the most important things to the students to me. And do you know what the top 2 items were? They were the equal amount as number 1, crime and drugs, and the other was affordability. So after 9 years of your government and you as Families and Children's Minister, this is your legacy, isn't it?
I'm not sure what the question is, but I will agree when it comes to affordability, and I will point to our Canada Child Benefit, providing families up to $7,000 each and every year per child in supporting them in raising their young families. I will point to a national child care system that...
How many scandals do you think Trudeau has had? I have another video over here showing how many, and it is a lot. And I think shame needs to be brought back into Canada because he has no shame anymore. And I think it just trickles down to everyone underneath him. And that's what's really frustrating about Trudeau. And as far as an election is concerned, obviously there should have been one a year ago. But do you think it'll really be in October 2025? Because his steam, like all he has to do is smile and for the camera, go on his vacations. There's going to be a new love in his life coming up, probably, because he has to, because he needs to take attention away from himself. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Let's go back to the video.
That is achieving 50% savings in every province and territory and $10 a day in 8. This is thousands of dollars each and every month that families are saving, and that translates to better outcomes for their children, more dollars left at the end of the day, whether that's extra food, whether that's the new pair of shoes we know our kids need every other month. That's affordability. Those are the measures that we're taking.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Fragus-Catos for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Minister and officials for being here. Minister, you just mentioned the Canada Child Benefit. What are the most recent numbers on the number of kids that have been lifted out of poverty as a result of the benefit?
Thank you very much for the question. And undoubtedly, the Canada Child Benefit has been incredibly impactful, lifting literally, I think it's 3.5 million people, or excuse me, we're seeing 3.5 million fewer people in poverty as a result. These are dollars that help families each and every month, offsetting which we know are expensive costs raising a family. Most of us around this table have children. We experience that. It's expensive to have a young family. So whether it's through the Canada Child Benefit coming in each and every month, which I will point out as well, is indexed to inflation each July, or whether that's our national child care program, saving thousands of dollars for child care if you need it, if you participate, whether that's the the Canada Dental Benefit, and now, of course, moving forward with pharmacare. We have a record, our government has a record of ensuring that we are supporting families through all stages of their life.
Thank you very much. I want to pivot to child care now. And could you speak to the fact that the child care program that we see unfolding across the country is actually quite nuanced, takes into account the fact that we have different approaches to child care and seeks to support those models wherever they exist. There's not-for-profits that benefit, there's for-profit organizations that benefit, and home center models as well. Could you speak to that? Because I think sometimes when people hear about a child care program, they might think it's just one thing, and in fact, our government has realized that it's nuanced on the ground, and we have to recognize those nuances and offer support accordingly.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question through the chair. You're absolutely right. When we look across this country and how childcare is delivered and the preferences of families across the country, there are differences. And whether you're rural, remote, urban, things are different. And the system that we are working with our partners, the provinces and territories, Indigenous partners to build, offers parents incredible choice. First of all, I would suggest it's not a mandatory system. You have the choice of whether you choose to participate or not. If you do choose to seek child care through our system, there's still an abundance of choice. You could choose to put your child in a child care center. You could choose to put your child in a family day home. There are various options when it comes to for-profit or non-for-profit centers or care. You could choose to leave your child with a relative. You could choose to have in-home care as a nanny. All of these choices that existed prior to 2021 all exist, but now the difference is they're affordable. Parents now have the opportunity. When prior to the fee reduction, there were many families who couldn't obtain childcare, who couldn't afford to pay the rates that had existed. So, arguably they have more choice now because they realize it's within reach and that they're able to afford the options that we've put out.
I have 1 minute left, Minister, and on the school food program. I have constituents in London that are quite interested in this. Certainly, colleagues around the table will have been asked the same, I'm sure. What can we tell constituents back home on what to expect moving forward? 400,000 kids stand to benefit as a result of what the government announced in Budget 2024. What can we expect, as I say, in the next few weeks, few months, as the school year comes around? When can that support be offered? And what would you tell organizations? For example, we have Growing Chefs in London, a great not-for-profit that is involved already in helping with breakfast programs. How can they be further involved?
Thank you through the chair. Great question. In the near term, our next step, obviously, we need to get through our budget process here. But having said that, come early summer, we will begin engaging with provinces and territories to negotiate those agreements, those funding agreements. We will be putting forward the National School Food Policy in the next few months as well. The opportunity for organizations such as the one you mentioned in your community is to ensure that the province recognizes the work that they do, ensure that they engage to be able to continue to grow the impact through the funding that we will be able to be flowing through the province.
Mr. Fragascaros, Madame Chabot pour 2 minutes et 30 secondes.
You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you, Chair. Minister, what is Canada's experience in school food? What do you know? What are you currently managing in this area? I think the answer is nothing, because it's provincial jurisdiction. It's Quebec's. So I'll ask another question. What is your knowledge of this area? How many provinces other than Quebec have programs in their provinces to support school food? Thank you for the question.
You're absolutely right. At current, it is provinces and territories who have ownership and jurisdiction and have rolled out some form of school food. Every province and territory is quite different. Quebec, to your point, has done fairly well. PEI has done incredible work. We're seeing different provinces and territories start to step up and grow their investments alongside a number of nonprofits and some corporate donations to help fund. So all that to say, our intention is to work with provinces and territories to increase that impact. It is ultimately, as you have said, the jurisdiction of the province to roll out and to oversee implementation of school food within the education system. But you have a willing federal government who is here ready to support, ready to put dollars into building out a national system so that families across the country and children across the country can benefit.
Merci, Madame la Ministre.
Thank you, Minister. Do I have any time left? 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Well, I'd simply like to say that obviously everybody agrees with the principle that no child should go to school hungry. I think that's a very clear fact. That's why we're investing, and that we can do better in Quebec, but we're investing significantly. You're saying that you haven't yet worked with Quebec and the provinces, whereas this is an electoral province dating back to 2021. Our wish is that Quebec can enjoy the right to withdraw with full compensation. Thank you.
Thank you.
A short answer, Madam Minister.
Sure. I would just, one point I'd like to add to that is you are correct. This was a commitment that was made in 2021 during the campaign. And this is not the start of the work. This work has actually been ongoing over the last few years in that.
I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
There was extensive consultations undertaken across the country involving parents, involving kids, involving a number of key stakeholders. And so we did put out last October, and as we heard it, report summarizing that, which will help to inform the policy as we move forward.
Madame Chabot, Mr. Angus for 2.5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Chair. The issue of childcare is definitely one of the key drivers of lack of affordability, and we know in Toronto it was about $1,000 a month per child. I mean, that just drove families out of the city. So the $10, the change to $10, I think is dramatic. I think it's very progressive. The problem is that it's not addressing other elements of inequality and affordability, particularly for the people working in the sector. So I see two problems here. Is that since the $10 announcement was announced, the wait times have just gone through the roof. Niagara region up 76%. Kawartha Lakes, prior to 2022, was a 3.7-year wait to be on the list for a child. Now it's over 6.4 years, which means those children are going to be out of the system by the time. So what steps are you taking to deal with this massive backlog that we're seeing in our communities?
Great question. I noticed your reference was mostly Ontario.
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, speaking to what we are doing here in Ontario, we have an agreement, I don't need to get into the details again, with the province. The province has committed to creating, I believe it's 86,000 new spaces by the end of the agreement. The biggest barrier as it stands right now, I'll cite two perhaps. So one is, again, the province has not sat down with operators and hammered out a long-term funding formula that gives operators not only obviously ensuring they're sustainable and they can cover their costs, but also giving them certainty that they will be able to grow.
I have to interrupt there because I only have a few seconds left. There's a March 15th report that just came out that talks about the perfect storm that's hitting childcare in Ontario. And one of the key indicators is that the wage paid is $19 an hour, which is not even close to a living wage, when $25 is what you need. So that we're asking people to step up and look after children while paying them a pittance, and that we cannot attract people. So what are the negotiations about ensuring that people have a proper wage, so that we bring qualified people into the system?
Thank you very much. Undoubtedly, we can't build this system without the workforce, without the qualified, well-respected, well-compensated early childhood educators. Here in Ontario, to date, there's been some incremental progress. I would point to Nova Scotia most recently, that brought forward wage increases as well as benefits and a defined pension contribution plan. We are seeing various provinces step up, not quite all. But there is work, obviously, to continue to support that and engage. The last point I would make is that I convene a federal, provincial, territorial table on an annual basis. At the last table, there was a commitment by all provinces and territories to work together on a workforce strategy, focus on retention, recruitment, et cetera. So that work is ongoing. I would expect we'll hear more about that in the fall. But there is wholeheartedly a need and a focus to make sure that the workforce is well supported, well compensated. In our budget this year, 2024, we've also made some investments around student loan forgiveness for ECEs that choose to practice in rural areas. And I see the chair is giving me my time.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. Thank you, Madam Minister. Committee members, we have a few points to conclude before you leave. So thank you, Madam Minister, for appearing, and thank you for recognizing the vision of my home province on food. Thank you of that. Thank you. I will excuse the Minister and her staff, but we do the whole reason we're here. We're pursuing Standing Order 814. A total of 6 votes for the main estimates were referred to this committee. The committee may choose to either render decisions on each vote one at a time, or with unanimous consent to call all the votes together. Is there unanimous consent to regroup the votes? The votes that we all discussed, I'm sure you were paying detailed attention to the numbers that were referred here. Okay, I see we have unanimous consent. Shall vote 1 of the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, votes 1 and 5 of the Canadian Accessibility Standards Development Organization, vote 1 of the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, and votes 1 and 5 of the Department of Employment and Social Development, less the respective amounts granted in the interim supply carry. Carried? Carried. Shall I report the votes on the main estimates to the House? Agreed. Thank you, committee members. Unanimous consent. One final, with regards to the study on housing, does the committee wish to invite the public to submit briefs for this study? Yes? Submit briefs? Public? Okay, I would suggest a deadline could be the end of the day on Friday, June the 21st. Is that agreeable to everybody? Good. With regards to the study on housing, what deadline does the committee wish to set for the submission of their list of witnesses for this study? A suggestion that I'll give is end of day on Friday, May the 17th, which would be next week. May the 17th. Do I see, okay. Madame Shabbat?
Mardi le 21 mai.
Tuesday, May 21st, please.
Oui.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Yes, Madame Shabbat wished Tuesday, May the 21st, so we'll go with that. See you in the one final item. We have noticed if the committee, any member of the committee would desire to consider travel attached to any motions we may look at in the fall, because currently the Internal Liaison Committee will look at travel requests for the period the end of June to the end of December 31st. What I'm advising is that if any member wishes to request such, that we would need to receive the final details by Wednesday, May the 22nd. Should the U.S. Committee will need to submit its detailed budget by May the 31st. So when we come back, first meeting, if any member wishes to suggest, because then the staff has to prepare an estimated budget, you would need to know the locations and how many locations you would look at. And I will give you a little heads up. I do sit on the committee that chooses where you go or don't go. So with that, committee members, I see no further business before the committee.
Apologies, Chair. Just to confirm, May 21st is the deadline for parties to submit witnesses for the housing study, and then June 21st is the deadline for organizations to submit briefs?
Written briefs, June the 21st for written briefs on the housing study that will begin shortly. And we chose Tuesday, May the 21st as the date for witnesses. Good? Seeing nothing else, with that, is it the wish, we covered already? Mm-hmm. Is it the wish of the committee to adjourn? Committee adjourned. Thank you, committee members.
Math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
And is Chrystia Freeland doing a good job? She is the finance minister and the vice president of Canada. And she is the one that just looks like her head is just spinning when she talks. It's always like trying to drag it on, never answer a question. And maybe they should have this I thought they would always do this. When they ask a question, say, do you mind after you finish it, if you give me 5 seconds to say if you answered it or not for our listeners, because it is so frustrating. Everything is an infomercial with both of them. And that's something that I think needs to be stopped. Maybe the whole Constitution and the human rights and everything needs to be rewritten again after those two are gone, because this is just frustrating what they're doing. Anyway, let's go back to the video.